It's another version of the IUN Basketball Coaches Show as both the Redhawks basketball teams' men's and women's season continues on. We're starting with the men's coach today, Javier Heredia. We're flipping the order last time. We let Jess go first. You get the chance to go first this time, Coach. And since the 2 weeks we talked, you had one loss versus Indiana Tech. Close loss, actually had a lead against a team that's ranked in the country, had just beaten the number 5 ranked team in the country. You were able to compete in that one. Indiana Tech pulled away, but then as we talked about on the show, those conference games came up. You rack off 2 wins against Roosevelt and Judson. And what we discussed last week was that's how you like to design the schedule. Let's give them some challenges. Let's make it difficult on them. And then we open up into conference play, and I've got this team dying to win. And that's exactly what happened. You came out and get 2 wins. So did the scheduling go to plan, you feel like? Did it achieve the goals that you set out with the schedule?
I think so. I think, as we mentioned last week, my teams with the type of recruits I bring in, mentioning 2-year junior college players, every season you're going to go through early in the season some learning curves, right? Some growing pains, and we went through those, and the design of the schedule did work into our favor. I knew if we had 2 challenging games on the road and bring in one of the best teams in the country at home, we were going to be challenged. Those are what I describe as 50-50 games. We get them, great. If not, hopefully we could take something from them. And then we were hungry going into Roosevelt for the open up conference play, and we battled that one, got the win, and then obviously on Saturday with the triple overtime versus Judson, we were able to grit that one out as well.
Well, now, as the season goes along, you expect that Jared Johnson will end up being the leading scorer, as he has been the last 2 years. But Isaac Standback, 23 points against Roosevelt, was the leading scorer leading into the Indiana Tech game. I mean, what a development here. I believe his nickname's Ike, right? Is that what you guys call Isaac?
Correct, Ike. Yes.
Right? So how has Ike been? Describe him as a player and how satisfied you've been as a coach, because statistically, he's making some noise early in the season.
Absolutely. Ike has grown since coming here. Heavy focus on him, getting him paint touches within 15 foot, but you can't step out and hit the 3 as well. Him and Jared, that's a tough combo when you have those two as scoring threats on the court. So Ike has been great for us so far.
Yeah, and Jared Johnson, again, 20 points against Roosevelt. I'm taking a look at the box score here. Just in terms of shooting, you came out in the first half against Roosevelt. You had struggled so much from behind the three-point line leading into that game. And then you start 1 of 5. What do you tell your guys? Because Brian Hernandez, Jared Johnson, all these guys that came into the season, the shooting numbers, it got to like 1 of 21 with your star players. What do you tell them to keep them their freedom? Because you came out and shot 50% in the second half against Roosevelt.
There's a few things. We always preach on in games the quality of the shot. I try not to tear down my shooters' confidence, but it's the timely threes and what we're trying to get into. If one of my guys take a quick shot, I'm not necessarily upset about it, but if that quick shot does not go in, the next possession has to be a good possession, whether it's a ball reversal, a paint touch for inside-out 3. Those are just naturally a higher percentage shots. So we just emphasize just taking quality shots. Try to keep the confidence up, and then it's all about reps. What are you doing outside of practice? You coming in early, you staying late, and I think after the slow shooting start in the first 3 games, Jared was in the gym on the weekends, on his day offs, before practices, even before games, just getting extra reps, and it's starting to pay off.
Well, it definitely paid off in that triple overtime game, which let's talk about that thriller that happened versus Judson. Jared Johnson finishes with 29 points, 5 of 10 from the three-point line. You mentioned those extra shots in the gym, 11 of 21 from the field. He had another 8 boards, 4 assists. I mean, what a game from Jared Johnson. And Ike added another 21. And it when you see your players put in that type of work in the gym, and then you go out and you get a conference win, and the thing he'd been struggling with, he fixed 5 of 10. Does Jared almost surprise you again as a player, or is this something that Jared Johnson has just made known in his time at IUN?
He's a hooper. He's a gamer. And when he was in a slump, he came out last season shooting a low percentage in the first 4 games. And once again, he got in the gym last year, extra reps, and it paid off, and he turned the corner about game 5, game 6, and then he got into a rhythm. I was not surprised. We have all the confidence in him. And I have all the confidence in my guys on the floor. It's just, once again, it's about the quality of the shot and getting extra reps.
Yeah, and so over the last 3 halves now, after your poor shooting start, you shot 3 of 6, 2 of 6, and 5 of 13 from 3. I feel like if you live there, Coach, that's where you're going to win a lot of games because of the athleticism, because of the post play, because of your guys' malleability on defense. I mean, it feels like all 5 guys you put out there on the floor, outside of maybe a guard here or there, can guard just about anybody out there in the conference. You can switch man if you want. So when they stabilize their shooting percentages like that, do you feel like that is just going to be the key to keep on winning, or do you expect as a coach that there's going to be some ebbs and flows with the 3-point percentage this year?
I think we're going to be consistent, and I hope that we'll be consistent moving forward. I think we are a better 3-point shooting team than we've shown in the first 3 games. I think the last 2 games is about where we're at, and I think we'll keep the defense honest. I think you would have to, if you're scouting us, you're going to have to defend our shooters, which will allow us to stretch the defense out and allow us to operate inside out.
What's one thing you guys should be doing after this 2-game winning streak and over the first 5 games in terms of what can you be doing better? Outside of just the classic, what can I look at in the box score shooting percentage? What can you be doing better as a squad?
X's and O's wise, defensively, we need to be more consistent on defending the ball screen. We throw a lot of different schemes out there, but I think we need to narrow one down. And I got something in mind that I think would work moving forward. Just defending the ball screens, whatever the scheme is, but just executing that in the defensive side of things. Offensively, it's just building more chemistry on the floor. It's a free-flowing offense with the read and react, and that just takes time to gel, getting all the new guys with the returners on the same page, and I see progression every game.
Well, you kind of saw that sometimes at Indiana Tech. You'd have because read and react, a lot of it is space out and then replace the guy and make sure that everybody stays evenly spaced, like everybody's connected on a string. And you would kind of see a few times, maybe they haven't played together in the system, and 3 guys would end up in the same area.
Yeah, the balance of the floor.
Exactly.
Just having a sense where we want to get certain players, touches, and just really seeing the defense and reacting to it and balancing the floor.
And do you think that, and then you mentioned defensively the X's and O's side of it, I feel like a lot of this is communication of you're trying to put together, another new roster, another batch of recruits. How's that communication developing? Just their ability to talk to each other as friends off the court and on the floor.
It's getting better every single day. I think that's one thing we've improved on in the last 2 weeks. When you bring in new guys and guys who are capable of playing at a high level, with returners like Jared and Brian. Brian was out the last 2 games due to injury. He got hurt at Indiana Tech. But the communication is what has got to be consistent improving on, and I've seen that. I've seen it on and off the floor, and I've seen all smiles the last 2 games, and everyone likes to smile after a win, right?
Yeah, of course.
But when winning happens, you tend to communicate even more off the floor, and I think this transpires onto the court as well.
Yeah, and I think that's just going to develop as the season goes along. So these problems that you've stated, it just at least in my personal opinion, seem like something that as the group grows together and continues to trust each other and continues to communicate, that those things will improve. In terms of what you're doing great, where you would look at the guys and go, man, we're great here. This is what I'm most satisfied with as a coach so far.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't believe we're doing anything great at this moment whatsoever.
Never ask a coach what he likes,
we show signs of on both ends of the floor of doing stuff that's where we need to be at. As far as describing it as great, we're still a ways away from being that. And I just always talk about, you want to be average, you want to be elite, and you have to do elite things every day in practice, outside of practice. And our goal is to become an elite team and do elite things, and we have quite a ways to go, but I think the guys know that.
Yeah.
And they're willing to accept that challenge.
Well, and I think that you guys showcase moments of elite. I think we saw that against Indiana Tech. Indiana Tech's a team that believes they can compete for, winning a few tournament games at the end of this all. And that second half lead, there were stretches where you're outplaying Indiana Tech, just flatly. It's not that Indiana Tech's had a bad shooting night, whatever. You're just flatly outplaying them. You guys didn't have a free throw attempt in the first half. and you're hanging step by step with Indiana Tech. But like you mentioned, I feel like you guys have those spurts. It's just about the consistency, right? What separates a professional golfer from a guy that can, is a scratch golfer, shoots par every once in a while? You put a hula hoop out there, golfer will hit it 10 out of 10 if he's a pro. If he's an amateur, it's 1 out of 10. So you feel like that, the consistency of it, I feel like at least, you guys are getting close to reaching that breakthrough moment, because the physicality and the athleticism and the talent, Coach, I was really, really impressed by it. Just the raw athleticism that's on your team. It almost got out of control in a few moments. When you guys that are that athletic, sometimes you ask them to slow down a touch to develop that consistency of, hey guys, you're super fast, you're super strong, you're super athletic, but maybe take a touch, take a step, reevaluate the floor. How do you handle athletes like that are moving 1,000,000 miles an hour? Do you tell them to slow down? Do you tell them to speed up? What's your strategy there?
It's all about pace and feeling the moment, correct? So if we're on a run, we want to keep pushing downhill. We want to keep charging. We're getting multiple stops in a row. We want to play at a fast pace. They get a good score. We come down, shoot a quick shot and miss, and it was a quick possession, and come down, they score again. Now they're on the run, correct? So now we want to come down, slow it down a little bit, maybe play a little high-low action, get the ball in the post, get a paint touch inside out three, just get a really good possessions. But I try to recruit as many like high-level athletes as possible, and I hope they're basketball players as well. And so we could play at a faster pace, more aggressive pace.
Yeah, and I think, again, and that was another one I saw against Indiana Tech, was that communication bit. You guys on the fast break, it looked great. We're getting numbers out, but are we finishing every time in the fast break? Because as a coach, if you're 4-on-2, 3-on-2, you expect to score there.
Absolutely.
Right?
You want to take every advantage of an odd man break. That's just my philosophy. If you have an odd man break, you want to charge downhill, but you have to score. You don't want to turn it over. You want to get something at the rim. You want to make the timely pass. You want to draw to defender, dump down pass, layup, and one. 10 out of 10 times, I'm going to tell my guys to take advantage of odd man breaks.
Sweet. Now, we talked last week about your intensity. And when I was doing play-by-play for the Indiana Tech game, had to miss the Judson game, unfortunately. There was a moment in the second half. Indiana Tech kind of had their run, few turnovers. You silenced the gym, right? The gym was silenced, and everybody went, okay, Coach Heredia is going in right now. In those moments, like, one, what did you say in that type of moment versus Indiana Tech, to where the gym was like, to have that power to have a whole gym just go, okay, that guy is making sure his message is heard. What did you say in that moment?
It was a clear message talking. This really the entire timeout was grit. We were discussing grit the entire week and what grit means to us and our what we're trying to do on the court, and just that toughness and that aggressiveness. And Indiana Tech went on a run, and we just lost all of our toughness and grit when they went on that run. We got away what we were doing we got the lead.
Yeah.
They went into the zone, and I felt like we were doing okay versus the zone, but we weren't playing aggressive. We're ball watching, shots go up. We weren't crashing offensive glass, and then we're timid at the end on the defensive end. And so that timeout was just to fire the guys up and remind them what Red Hawk basketball is all about, and that's about grit and toughness. And that's the reason why we lost the game during that stretch. We didn't have that grit. We didn't have that toughness. And they may have been tired, but at that point in the game, going again, when you're in the battle against one of the best teams in the country, you have to burst through that wall of fatigue and just get gritty. And that's what wins games. And we kind of lost that focus during that it was about a 5-minute span from the 11-minute mark to a 6-minute mark.
It was right after you guys took the lead in the second half.
Correct, yeah.
To where it felt like, hey, this Indiana Tech team was beatable.
Yeah, absolutely.
From a talent, especially you had 0 free throw attempts in the first half, which when you have that as a coach and you're still hanging around in the game, that to me is a positive sign, because you're going to get some calls start to break your way. In terms of how they responded the 2 games after that, did you have to remind them of grit again? Have you had to get to that level as a coach on a sideline since then? Or was that kind of a turning point, that run from Indiana Tech, that moment of you want to beat one of the best teams in the country, you got to show some grit? How's it kind of carried over since that moment?
I think there was a turning point. You made we lost the game and talked about it in the locker room, and then and made a point to on Monday. We go to the film, break it down, and I really broke down that segment right there, and I just showed them like how we regained the lead, in the second half, and then that 5 minute segment, I just showed them how we weren't playing with toughness and we were playing with no grit, and the film is undefeated.
Yeah.
Film will always be undefeated, and when they seen it on film, and I'm a guy that if I see something on film, I'm gonna show it 5 times in a row to get my point across.
You got
And
the
I'm
little
going
clicker, the rewind,
and then I'm
fast
gonna play it
forward.
in slow motion. And I think that was actually the turning point because they had one of the best teams in the country, and we were up in the second half, but we just lost our focus and our grit. And I think the guys themselves, they talk about it more now. They talk about the energy, the effort, the grit, the toughness every day in practice, and then definitely that transpired in Roosevelt. We came out a lot more grit, tougher, and then Judson in triple overtime, and we were shorthanded versus Judson. Brian was out, and then Vaughn Leonard center, who's got off to a great start this season. He was out for 2 days just with the flu, and then he shows up. He texts me early in the morning, Coach, I stopped throwing up about 2 hours. I'm gonna try to go, and that's grit. That's toughness right there. He didn't have a great offensive game, but him just showing up and playing through that fatigue,
Yeah.
showed a lot of grit and guts as well.
Yeah, and speaking of any players that if I pour through box scores, you wouldn't be able to notice that you want to kind of they've been showing grit and toughness specifically or extra that you want to mention here.
Oh, absolutely. Javion Reed and Nikki Flesher. Both of them, not great size. Javion's a little taller for a combo guard, but not great size. But the last 2 games, they knocked down some threes. Offensive rebounds. If you see their offensive rebounds, they are tough. They're gritty. They get the 50-50 balls. They do the hustle plays, and they can knock down a 3. So the stats won't always show how valuable they are, but they are the definition of Red Hawk basketball. And with that being said, like Nikki, who's 5'10", 5'11", came in that triple overtime, crashed the offensive rebound, got it, went back up against a 7-footer, got fouled, and knocked down the free throw, and that was the game. That's grit.
Yeah,
And we won the game on grit.
And when you're getting it from the bench players who don't have those athletic tools that the rest of the roster has been given, that almost demands from the guys, I feel like, at the top of the roster that have all this athleticism, like, hey, look at Nikki. Nikki's going up and grabbing offensive boards and finishing over 7-footers and winning games. You guys are 6'5", 210 and
Absolutely.
builds up. Why can't you do that, right? Is that kind of what those type of players provide?
Absolutely. I could go to the film and praise them all day in film and say, look what he's doing. Why can't you do that? If you do what he's doing, that takes you from this level to elite level, and that's what I mentioned earlier about what it takes to get to the elite level.
Yeah, and Javion Reed as well, shooting over 50% from the field on 13 shots and over 66%, exactly 66% from 3. So in the limited shot opportunities, they're taking advantage of it and building that balance, so critical. In terms of practice, where are you at right now? Are these intense practices? Are these light practices? Are they walk through? What are you doing at practice this time of year?
So it depends on what the weekly schedule. We have an extremely busy schedule this week. We have our junior varsity game, first game tonight. We're on the road at Saginaw. We come back on a Wednesday morning, turn around with back-to-back games this weekend. But typically this time of season, if we have 2 days to prepare, that first day is going to be a tough practice. It's going to be a 2-hour practice. We're going to get up and down. We're going to do defensive drills. We're going to do the tire and conditioning drills. The day before, just shorten the practice, but the same intensity. We don't do walkthroughs the day before. We just shorten the practice a little bit, maybe a little less running at the beginning, but we don't stop with the toughness of a practice. I like getting to the shell. I like getting the guys live. They love it. They're competitors. They want to compete every single day. They look forward and they'll ask for certain types of drills that really allows them to compete.
Favorite drill?
Oof. We do. We call it Cincinnati. It's just a build up. It's one
like
on
that.
2, 2 on 3.
Sam Michael wouldn't like Cincinnati, but
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know why it's labeled Cincinnati, but the guys love it. It's a tire and drill. A lot of odd man breaks with it, and then you get into the half court and you play for 2 minutes, and then the way we do scoring is it's a little complicated, but you have to play both sides of the ball in order to win the drill.
Nice. I love hearing different types of drills that coaches do, and they all really end up being kind of similar things, but there's always little styles on it, and add points for this or don't do that. If you would give one piece of advice before we preview your games next week, if you were to give one piece of advice to younger basketball players about what skills and drills they can do on their own to develop skill, what would that be? Because I think that's a big insight into just your general basketball philosophy. If there were a kid and he said, what's the one thing I should really be working on, or what's one drill I can do on my own to get better, what would you say that'd be?
That's a tough question. There's a million now basketball trainers, correct? And they train with the cones and all the gadgets and everything. But I'm just big on fundamentals.
Yeah.
If you shoot the ball, you're going to find yourself on the court, correct? So if you have just good fundamentals and shooting, and if you develop the rest of your game, you will be a good basketball player, correct? So it's just good shooting fundamentals, good mechanics, and then you don't get bored of the fundamentals, correct? Yeah. You can't get bored of the mechanics of shooting. You may be able to add some jazz to your ball handling and whatever, but your form, your shooting's got to be consistent, and you can never stop working on it.
So shooting, and I think that if you can shoot, I think Coach Heredia is right. If you can shoot, you can find yourself on about any court in the country.
Absolutely.
And then if the Lord blesses you to be 6'5" and you can shoot like nobody else, you might end up on the highest level court in the country, because how many guys do we see in the NBA nowadays that are a $190 soaking wet, but they can hit a corner three and they're just good enough on defense. So we'll give him an $80 million contract. I'm talking about Luke Kennard, who I think, right, fantastic shooter, right? Not this over-the-top athlete, and he's going to be $100 millionaire just because he can get that thing into the hole. All right, let's preview your big conference matches. You've got Bellevue, Viterbo, Saginaw Valley, as you mentioned. But next Tuesday, ONU, and the next Wednesday, double dip on the road. Well, no, that's the Wednesday next week. Sorry, 8 days. I was about to say, that would have been insane. 2 road games in the conference. Let's start with ONU. Quick preview of that one.
ONU, reigning conference champs the last 2 seasons. They only lost 1 game last season. That was to us in conference. We've shown we can battle with them. They lost their first team All-American, Alex Gross, who's now at Morehead State, Division I. But ONU returns a lot of quality players. Top player, Tyler Schmidt. He's a region kid from Valpo, played at Victory Christian. Just a good combo guard that does it all, does it well. And Olivet's a disciplined team. They run their sets. They play good gap defense. So it's just at Olivet, it's a tough place to win. So we have to be locked in and focused on that.
And then St. Francis, 8 days from there. So you have a break for Thanksgiving. First off, what's your plan during that break? Is there a team Thanksgiving? Do the guys go home? What's the plan there?
With our unique makeup, the guys go home. If I do have a few guys left sticking around, we'll fix them a meal and take it over to their house on our way to my family's Thanksgiving. But I think this year, I believe everyone will be traveling home. I don't have guys that live terribly far. Before, I would have guys in southern Indiana and St. Louis, but I think Davion Washington would be the only one that has to travel more than 3 hours. But his family lives in Gary as well, so his father lives in Gary. So I'll give the guys a couple days off, rest.
Don't eat too much.
Don't eat too much. Actually, eat as much as you can.
Yeah.
You're going to run it off the next day. So it does regardless of what you put in your body, you will be sweating it out when you get to practice the next day, regardless. So.
Yeah. And these guys are burning calories like nothing. So
absolutely.
One Thanksgiving day.
Correct.
Fun with the family. A little extra stuff. And
yeah.
What's your favorite Thanksgiving meal item?
Turkey. My wife makes the best turkey, I think. So definitely turkey.
It just can't be dry, man.
No, she brought
dry.
Her methods of the preparation for it. I can't explain it. I'm not a cook like her, but it's just fantastic.
Well, when that Thanksgiving turkey's dry and your poor grandma made it, and you don't want to tell her because the whole thing's done. It's Thanksgiving dinner's happening right now. You just kind of gotta and take it. So
Well, that's what the gravy's for, right?
Then you're getting the extra gravy and you're bringing it out. All
Absolutely.
right. Final question. Let's talk about St. Francis. Little preview of that matchup after Thanksgiving on November 30th. Just give me a quick preview there.
Ryan Marks at St. Francis, he's a seasoned vet. He's a good coach. He always has his guys ready. They haven't played a whole lot of games. I think they just got their first conference win this past weekend over Calumet College. I haven't dove too much into them yet. I could tell you all about Olivet and a few other conference teams. I could tell you that he always has good size, good guards, and they run good sets. And it is a tough-nosed team. You just have to come ready. It's conference play. Every team on the men's side, you have to come prepared because the balance of the top to the bottom, it's not that separated. So you prepare every game as it's win or go home.
Well, right now 2-0 in conference play. Coach Javier Heredia. Coach, thank you for joining us again on the show. Fantastic job as always. Always fun talking with you, talking practice, talking Thanksgiving food, and a turnaround from the 0-3 start. Had the tough schedule, went through the bumps and bruises, got 2 conference wins. Now an opportunity to really make a run. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, Coach.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, that's Coach Javier Heredia. We'll have Jess Ford, the head coach of the women's basketball team for IUN, on the other side of the break. This is the IUN Basketball Coaches Show here on WJOB.